Hi there, I am Donna Nova. I'm known as the Transdimensional Twin Flame and the Afterlife Artist. The reason being, I am a twin flame on a twin flame journey, and my twin is my husband who passed into spirit in 2021. So we call ourselves the Transdimensional Twin Flame because we have a transdimensional or interdimensional relationship now. I am able to visit the other side of the veil. You can call it the afterlife, although I don't accept that it's convenient. I do call my digital art afterlife art when it's representing what I have seen in my travels across the veil. It's catchy, but in truth, there is no afterlife because it is simultaneous to this life. All of your lives are concurrent, and time is not linear other than what we experience here in the third dimension because we need it. Really, we need it to function here because here we have a three-dimensional reality and we interact with each other that way. In the higher dimensions, we can interact in a lot of different ways, and we're not constrained by the physicality of the world that we're living in right now. So I came here to talk about a funny synchronicity and some pretty cool information about Elvis Presley. My twin husband, Chris, often sends me ridiculous, crazy, mega synchronicities that usually have like 3 to 5 or more different meanings to us. So it's not just like one thing, it'll be a message that actually incorporates like 5 different meanings for us. So a lot of times, if I wake up in the middle of the night, either my phone is playing a show, which sometimes could be something mindless, like Unsolved Mysteries, something that just plays in the background. Or if I've been smart and turned my phone off before I fall asleep, which is what you should do, I will wake up, and then if I can't go to sleep right away, I will turn on a show that's mindless, like Unsolved Mysteries, which is a great show. I mean, I used to love it. They talked about lots of things that we take for granted now. Such as they talk about after-death communication, they talk about mediumship, they talk about all the different kinds of mediumship, such as traditional mental mediumship, but they'll talk about spirit appearances, they'll talk about walk-in souls, they talk about channeling, and they even talk about after-death communication and after-death relationships. And this was way before most people even knew what that was. And honestly, most people still don't know what it is. So that show was very ahead of its time. So what happened last night, I woke up between 3:45 and 4. I turned on Unsolved Mysteries, and it was an episode that I don't remember ever seeing. And this is what I heard that made me start laughing and realizing why I was supposed to be awake. They said, this episode, we're going to talk about identical twins and what happens when one of them dies. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to hear this, obviously. The first synchronicity, obviously, being they're talking about identical twins, but I'm a twin flame. Twin flames are defined as one soul that has decided to split itself into 2 bodies. This is for the purposes of accelerated learning because Earth is a school, and the purpose of Earth life is to learn as much as you can about yourself and about life. Just learning. That's why nothing that you do is really a mistake, because you're learning something. And even if you don't realize what the lesson is right away, you will at some point, whether you learn it in this 3D life or when you cross the veil, you'll be given a life review and you will be given the chance to figure out what you could have done differently and learn your lessons that way. You continue your learning journey on the other side of the veil as the same person that you are right now, just with a higher perspective, and you don't have the limitations of the 3-dimensional body. You don't have all those worries about the three-dimensional issues that bother you right now. In that way, it's a lot easier. The energy is so much higher. It's such a high vibration, and it's full of love and understanding, and instant communication energetically, instant travel. It's amazing. I can speak from personal experience on that. So last year, I channeled a message trying to explain twin flames, and the guides referred to twin flames as being the closest thing that most people could understand would be like a biological identical twin. Now, see, a lot of people have co-opted the twin flame term and the label, and they don't understand what the journey is really about. So we're not going to go into that, but twin flames are it's a highly challenging spiritual journey. Twin flames are here to awaken each other to that journey, and then to have a mission of ascension for themselves and usually the human collective. It's a journey of self-discovery and service. And, you could say that about almost anyone, but this is on another level. It's like a school curriculum. So most people are not twin flames. You wouldn't really want to be if you knew what it was like, because sharing a soul with another person can be maddening. You can think you're going crazy, basically. So I channeled a message and explained that just like most people here would not say that they were a twin, like a physical twin, because they don't have a physical biological twin, brother or sister, it's the same way for twin flames. You're not going to share a soul with just anybody. It's not going to be something that most people do because it's really complicated. This journey asks you to be very highly spiritually ascended. It makes you go through trial by fire. You have dark nights of the soul that would make other people cringe just to hear about it, right? But you're supposed to go through all this and come out the other side feeling stronger and more awakened and more aligned to your true purpose, because the things that weren't really you have been burned away. And that's just the beginning of the twin flame journey. So I have already compared twin flames to biological twins, because there's no closer relationship that humans currently have in the physical than if you are a biological identical twin. But twin flames sharing a literal soul is the next level above that as far as the depth of the connection, because sharing an egg with your sibling is amazingly close, but sharing a soul with someone is magnitudes deeper. So in this episode of Unsolved Mysteries that I heard last night, they start off with saying, for instance, Elvis Presley had a twin brother that passed just before he was born. I think he was born about 7 or 9 minutes before Elvis. And so by the time Elvis was born, his brother had already passed into spirit. And Elvis had issues his whole life, feeling guilty, but also feeling driven to, achieve the most that he could in life. And he had issues because of this guilt that he had and the grief, right? Because you can imagine how hard it must be to know that you were part of a set of twins, the person that was most like you in the world, and you got to live and they didn't. I have a different perspective on it. My perspective is that Elvis's twin brother, Jesse, was contracted before they chose to incarnate to help Elvis from the other side. This is what my twin flame, Chris, is doing for me. I know what it feels like. So then, on Unsolved Mysteries, they start talking about how Elvis would hear someone's voice in his head. He knew it was his twin, or at least that's what he thought, but it made him think that sometimes he was crazy. And he would have really vivid dreams of visitation with his twin brother from the other side. And he felt, guided by his brother. And back then, when they filmed this episode of Unsolved Mysteries, they didn't have a term for this, but it has now been documented enough times to where the accepted term is after-death communication. So Elvis Presley was practicing after-death communication, and it's actually been documented quite often in twins. They said when one twin dies, the other twin is called a twinless twin, which I think is really sad because it's not true. They're not twinless. They just don't have them here in the physical. They should probably call them transdimensional twins or interdimensional twins. Or, one twin is physical, one is non-physical. Non-physical humans are still humans. So then I remembered, on top of this really crazy synchronicity, which I think is super cool, I had talked to Elvis 2 years ago in my mediumship development circle. We were going to try an automatic writing exercise and connect with Elvis. And I was born in Tennessee, where Elvis had his estate. And he told me I might want to go back there to connect with who I really am, because in this lifetime, who I really am has been obscured by trauma, like for many people. And that I might be able to really accelerate on my spiritual journey if I would connect more with that child self of who I am. Now, my child self had a near-death experience when I was born. I was born 2 months premature. I weighed 2 pounds 11 ounces. And in one of the coolest synchronicities I have on my journey, my twin flame Chris passed into the veil on 2/11/21. So February 11th, 2021. Now this year on February 11th, I was hosting an interdimensional party for my Facebook group. We all have people across the veil, and when I learned to bilocate, I learned that Chris and I could go to parties that we were hosting on the other side, and we started to learn to host them for other people. So we can open a portal that's large enough for other people to access. We were doing this on February 11th, 2024 for our private group because it was the 3rd anniversary of Chris's Ascension Day. And I'm trying to teach people, we both are, that you don't have to necessarily grieve the same way on these anniversaries as you might think. We wanted to turn this into a day of celebration because really it's the day when he went home, and it's the day that he moved in with me, from spirit. He didn't live with me before this. He was planning to move here with me, but he lived several states away. And, a month later he was going to drive down here, but he passed before he could do that. So he told me from the beginning to think of this as the day he moved in with me, and to think of it as him moving in earlier than we thought. So this year I'm hosting, an interdimensional party, which we call Raven Afterlife Parties. Raven standing for Radio Afterlife Veil Ending Night. My partner is a prolific musician, singer, songwriter, and DJ, and he runs a radio station on the other side from our house on the other side called Raven, Radio Afterlife. So on February 11th this year, I was hosting an interdimensional party for him, and I found out right before I went live on Facebook to host it that my mom had passed. So she passed on Chris's Ascension Day, and they shared their party. She was at the party. My dad was there as well. I had seen them over there before because, you can visit the other side even when you are physically alive. You're not there to stay, but you can visit. So that was one synchronicity involving my birth. But also, I was born in Tennessee, where Elvis ended up living. But I only stayed there for the first 2 months of my life because I was born so premature that I almost died. And I was in an incubator for 2 months. So what I have been told by Chris and my spirit guides since then is that I was being given a chance to train in how to be a transdimensional human like I am now. Because now I'm able to fairly easily communicate with the other side. Chris is very easily able to communicate with me. and I'm able to visit the other side and perceive it when my family on the other side is visiting me. And I do believe the fact that we are twin flames is the reason for this, because we're not a separate soul. We're separate people. You know, we're each complete in our own rights as humans, but the soul that we share is the same soul. So it's easy to communicate in the non-physical for twin flames, even when both of them are physically alive. But the other reason I think this is easier for us is because I had had a near-death experience at the beginning of my life, which was my training to be able to hold both vibrations. And you know, Elvis, I didn't really think about it, but Elvis had a similar thing where he's not the one that had the near-death experience, but his twin brother had a death experience, and then they were able to communicate ever since. And you see what kind of heights Elvis rose to. His brother was guiding him and helping him reach those heights. It's the same thing that my partner Chris tells me. He said I was the horse to bet on. He said that the things that we are going to do, he's just supporting me and guiding me all the way. So when I was talking to Elvis in my mediumship session, he said, for all of us, he said, be as weird as you want to be and don't worry that it's too weird for people. Don't, you know, he's like, it worked out for me to be my complete authentic self. Even though people thought it was weird, they also really loved it because it was real. It was different. It was unusual, but it was definitely real. So that was his advice to me, is to check out my childhood self, to reconnect with that person, and to not worry about what it was, you know, not worry about what it looks like to other people, but to be yourself. And then he told me, this was in 2021, he told me that my mom would be joining them soon on the other side, and that they would take care of her, and that everything would be fine, and I wouldn't have to worry about her anymore. And, you know, less than 2 years later, that turned out to be true. So I thought that was really interesting. Elvis had a twin brother who passed at Elvis's birth and communicated with Elvis from the other side of the veil his entire life. He said that he could hear him in his own head, and he told people about this and, you know, wondered sometimes if he was going insane, which can happen on a spiritual journey, but also can happen when you start getting, interdimensional contact from somebody in spirit. I've definitely had it happen. I knew that I wasn't going crazy because I knew what it was, because I'd had mediumship training already before my husband passed. But for most people, they're going to not know what that is, and they're going to think they're crazy. But Elvis's brother guided him throughout his life because that was their arrangement. He was his guardian angel for his entire life, which I think is so beautiful. All right, thanks for listening. I hope that made sense. I think it was a good message from Elvis, and it was good confirmation for me, and it was a great synchronicity because I really shouldn't have been awake at 3:45 this morning. Thanks so much.